Hi, Steve. Welcome back again. It's great to have you here from Ama Waterways as we talk about another wonderful river cruise. This one is in Portugal, going on the Douro River. So today, Steve and I are going to talk about this cruise and all that Portugal and Ama Waterways can offer to our clients. So thanks, Steve.
Thank you very much for having me back, Darby. Look forward to doing this presentation with you, covering the Douro River, like you said. So without pause, let's jump right in here. And the itinerary we're looking at today is called the Enticing Douro. It is a 7-night river cruise on the Douro River in Portugal, touches in Spain a little bit. It's a 10-night program that starts with 3 nights in Lisbon, or Lisboa, as you would say in Portuguese. We have a very nice land program there. You can fly into Lisbon. We greet you. We do excursions every day in and around Lisbon, and then we coach the guests up to Porto. Porto is the port where
Steve, how far of a ride is that from Lisbon to Porto?
It's about a 3.5-hour drive, 3.5 to 4-hour drive.
Okay, through beautiful countryside, though.
Beautiful countryside, and we stop along the way in Sintra, which is outside of Lisbon, and we see the famous castle of Sintra, where the presidential palace is.
Nice.
So here's the city of Porto, and of course, the Portuguese are known for their great fishing skills. Some of the greatest fishermen in the world, and whalers. We know from being here in New England, Darby, that a lot of the early whalers that settled in New Bedford and Fall River were Portuguese and Azorean, right? So there's a lot of fishing history here in the city of Porto. We start off the first day with a beautiful excursion of the City of Bridges tour. There's a series of 4 or 5 expansion bridges from the early 1900s, built between 1904 and 1910. And the gentleman that designed these bridges is a very famous architect in Europe. And these bridges are still used today, and very interesting visits.
Looks amazing.
Yeah, it's really cool. And then that evening, we do a Porto wine tasting. A port wine is a sort of a heavy red wine, almost like a brandy. And it's something that this city is known for. And people really get into their port wine drinking. People that are aficionados of port wine would drink a glass of port wine and smoke a cigar. That is the ritual, or how it works. Even in this country, a lot of people are into port wine, but very interesting. Something new, something different to learn.
Yeah, wine tastings are always great.
Yeah, most of our itineraries have a certain amount of wine tastings built in. This is Entre os Rios, and this is on our way to our next destination along the river. And this is Hegua. Hegua is a beautiful town. This is what you'll see along the Douro River, very different from other rivers that people may have sailed with you, the Danube or the Rhine or the Seine River in France. The Douro is this beautiful, fertile wine region, river valley, and you see that just the vineyards steeped here on both sides of the river. Beautiful town, and we'll take you here. We'll take you up into the foothills here to the town of Lamego with a bolas tasting, and this is the cathedral, the famous cathedral in Lamego, and it's called the Holy Staircase Hike, is what we take people on. Portugal, let's remember, is a Catholic country, and you have a Catholic cathedral here, and there is a story behind the stairs, 961 stairs.
I was going to ask, how many stairs are there?
Yes. So the story goes, there was a miracle here back in, I believe, the 1860s. And if you can get up all those stairs and then say a prayer, your prayers will be answered. That's sort of how it works here. It is a beautiful cathedral. You can see the wonderful murals there in the tiles as you work your way up. And then we'll end that excursion with a bolas tasting. Bolas is a Portuguese donut with filled with egg cream. Really delicious. You can get
Oh,
them.
yeah.
You can get them here in New England, still in New Bedford and Fall River and places like that. Really, really yummy donuts. You'll see them along the way on this itinerary. Then the next day we have the town of Pinhão. Now, I love this photograph. This is not a doctored photograph. When you look up, when you go online, if you Google the Douro River, you will inevitably see these pictures. Pinhão is the town, is the region, is the area that's most photographed when you're looking at the Douro River. And just look at these. These are very old family-owned vineyards. They're tended to manually. They don't have these big, it's not a big vineyard, corporate vineyard with a lot of machines, taking care of the land. It's not that way. These are just very old, small family-owned vineyards here. And just a
I imagine with the steepness of the hills too, that the only way they can really tend to the vines is by hand, because you can't get machinery up there, and that's not how they do it there anyway. So
goats and people, that's about all
they
can
exactly
get, right? So, and Barca de Alva is would be our next stop, and this is where we dock to do this excursion here to Castelo Rodrigo. This is a medieval castle. This castle goes back to the 8th or 9th century. Not a lot left to the castle, as you can see, but a beautiful hike up here. And then the vista, the views from up here are spectacular. Makes for great photographs. This you can see now as we start to go through the itinerary, very different from what our guests are seeing in the central part of Europe and in France. You don't see big towns or cities here. This is the path, unspoiled, the road less traveled, so to speak, and just a very different experience than some of our other river cruises.
I was just thinking, as you were saying that this itinerary compared to some of the Rhine and the Douro, you don't have, besides Lisbon, you don't have the big cities where, you're going in the old part of the cities. These are more countryside, more kind of a laid back type of itinerary.
You're exactly right. And the other thing I'll point out here is because we're up in these sort of mountainside villages and towns and more rural areas, we're taking many of our meals off the ship. Lunches are at these vineyards and at big farms and estancias and things like that, and dinners as well, wine tastings. So not all of the meals are taken on the ship, which is very different from how some of our other river cruises are done here.
You get a more authentic feel, though, of
much more authentic,
because you're dining, in the towns and things like that. Though
you're meeting the locals.
Even on the ship, you get the regional food. But
absolutely. And this is Vega de Torón in Spain. This is the day that we do cross into Spain here for an excursion. And it's the town of Salamanca. And it's a beautiful town. Some great shopping opportunities here. This is the main plaza in the town. Very Spanish looking if you've been to Spain before. And then we have an excursion that includes flamenco dancing. And I've seen the flamenco dances both in Spain and in Buenos Aires, Argentina. It's a very, very exotic dance with a couple, and the music is great, and they're playing guitars and the castanets in the background, and it gets to sort of a fever pitch. It's very interesting. So that's what we're doing there that day in Spain. And then we head back. So the river it's 3.5 days to the east, and then 3.5 days back to the west, back towards Porto, and now back in Pinhão. But we do something different in Pinhão in this direction. We do a nice wine tasting of, now we're drinking whites, the Vino Verdes. These are very people don't think about the Portuguese wines as much as, say, maybe the Italian wines or the French wines, but they make very good wine in Portugal, and their white wines are very reasonably priced here in the States, and they're very drinkable. I would compare these whites to maybe Sauvignon Blanc. Yeah, so sort of a crisp taste, sort of light, maybe a little citrusy aftertaste. Very good wines, very drinkable. You can get them here at most wine stores, maybe $12 a bottle. So this is a fun visit. And then here we have a lunch at a Quinta Avançada lunch in the Alto Douro region. Again, you see the steeped vineyards along the banks. Here's the lunch here. You mentioned earlier, very authentic, right? So you have, the family will sponsor lunch for us, and they'll bring local musicians, and there's wine, and there's good food, and there's good company. And look at the background there. I mean,
Yeah, it's beautiful.
They just go on, right? The rolling hills just go on forever. So very authentic experience. Then back to Hegua. This time a dinner at Quinta de Alaveda. Alaveda is a regional white wine, type of white wine. And in this particular case, we're having dinner at the vintner, at the vineyard that produces a lot of this wine. And then the next day we have lunch at Mateo's Palace. This is a palace from the 17th century, beautiful setting, beautiful gardens. Again, different, much different from our other experiences around the world, Europe and our other exotic destinations. But I just like the idea that we're not eating on the ship every day, all of our meals. We're taking meals off the ship. We're meeting the different families that run these estates. We are drinking a lot of wine, and we are eating some local foods.
Oh, it looks amazing.
And then back to Porto. And Porto, we didn't do a deep dive into Porto, but Porto itself is a very interesting port city. A lot of great architecture, a lot of great restaurants. I like the waterfront scene there. You see all the fishing boats tied up there, and along the main strip there, along the docks are these wonderful cafes and bistros, and just a very, very busy small city with a lot to offer. And
it's very colorful city that
yes,
does have a lot to do. That if you get to Portugal, going to Porto and Lisbon is they're different and special in each of their own ways. So
yeah, I agreed. And I think what happens is people go to the most popular rivers in Europe. They start on the Danube and the Rhine. That makes sense. And then they go on the Rhone or the Seine in France. And then they say, what about this Douro River? Oh, by the way, Douro means gold in Portuguese, and everything you see, all the colors in the background there were sort of the gold or the rust colors. That's how it gets the name, right? But very different, very unique. Language is very different, not quite like Spanish, not like Italian, not like French. It is a Romance language, but different, right? And the cuisine also is different. People think, well, it's like Spanish cuisine. Not really, it's got its own. And you and I are both from here, same area of New England. If you've had Portuguese cuisine, it's not Spanish. It's different. It's it's a lot of it is seafood because they have this great fishing tradition. They do a lot with cod and eel and other dishes like that. But just a really interesting culture, like I mentioned earlier, the Catholic tradition and the tradition of fishing. So just something different for your clients to consider, to look at. Just a beautiful part of the world. I think Portugal gets overlooked because there's so many nice destinations in Europe, but something to consider.
Right. Over these last, several months, I've been talking to a lot of people about Portugal, and it's just a great destination to go to because it's smaller. And like you said, it's kind of overlooked, So if someone's looking for, a quieter trip, that's fairly close, to us.
Right.
Hopefully as the airlines get their flights back, you know, on a regular schedule, there'll be nonstops out of Boston. So it's, you know, it's a great trip to be able to go on, to be able to experience all of the country too, just not the city of Lisbon per se.
Right. Agreed.
So yeah, no, it's wonderful. I'm ready to get on the rivers again.
Good. That's great. I appreciate you having me, and let's get together again soon and talk about another interesting destination. And if you
Yes,
have any questions or your clients have any questions, just let me know.
I will. All right. Thanks a lot, Steve. It was great having you today.
Bye, Darby. Great seeing you.
Take care. Thanks.
Bye-bye.